Dan Quinn speaks in 1 hour. 3:30 press conference for the head coach today. Welcome back, Grant and Danny on the Fan. Danny, Ian Rappaport moments ago, NFL media, saying that the Daniels MRI revealed a sprained knee. He says it's not a long-term injury, but Daniels' status this week against the Raiders is in doubt. This meshes with exactly what I've heard, which was to say we had just teased going to break. We're going to talk about this coming back. And we didn't know, obviously, this report would break during this time. But what I've heard all along was it would be surprising if he played. I think when you're dealing with a guy that's his age and that was able to recover as quickly as he did last year and play through the broken rib that he did,
right,
they're not just going to rule him out outright and say there's no way that we know, on a Friday, Saturday after an MRI, he's definitely not going to be ready the following week. But if you're going to be a little bit conservative with him, or if you're going to not let him play unless he's 100%, it is unlikely based on, I'll use the word severity of, or just how banged up the knee is, that he was going to be ready to be himself. So I haven't gone hard in the paint to say he's not going to play, but everything that I've heard from multiple people has been they've got a plan for him, and that barring a real surprise, it was unlikely that he was going to be able to get back on the field against the Raiders, which would set up a game for Marcus Mariota to start against the last team he started for.
Yeah, his former team. What I never understood was the casual confidence from so many that everything was fine and he'll be okay and it's all good. And this is both a relief that it's not something more serious, but also concerning that it's going to affect him in some way, right? And now we're kind of doing this dance. But the casual confidence I heard from, whether I'm listening to different shows or fans or the Twitterati or everything else, that, he's okay. It's nothing. And he was going to play this weekend. There was this assumption. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing, hearing, and consuming, because we did last year where he had a broken rib or ribs. They wouldn't admit it. He's getting wrapped up like a mummy between every possession, and there's never an admission that everything was fine. So to me, and I'm not faulting them, by the way, I'm not criticizing anybody, simply saying, if that's how you're going to be in terms of keeping things tight-lipped, close to the vest, etc., I don't do what you say at face value anymore, right? You're not in the business. You made it clear with your mission. You have no interest in letting me know and letting the public know what's going on intimately with injuries, and you're doing whatever the rule is, etc. You're not going to offer any excuses. You've made it very clear that you don't care that we are in the circle of trust and we know the deal. So what I'm going to do from now on is not believe you when you tell me everything's fine, or sort of keep digging when you let me know that he'll be fine, or whatever the statements happen to be. So I was confused by the people that just sort of assumed that he would be good to go this weekend. But back to this. Again, I'm grateful it's not something more serious, because when you hear knee, automatically that's one of those touch points or clutch points of somebody's body where something's going on there. You start thinking about surgeries. You start thinking about longer recoveries, et cetera. So again, sprained knee is good. What's bad is it's going to affect him. And I'm very, very hopeful that they are smarter than frankly, I thought they were last year.
So I want to get into that, first of all. This idea of protecting him from himself, not allowing him to just go out and play through pain. Knee, very different than a rib. The comparisons, obviously, that everyone's going to make unfairly to the team that I covered with the Shanahans, with the number 2 overall pick, who was dealing with a knee that he'd injured and tried to play through it and then ended up shredding the knee, right? Which is, again, not a fair comparison or a reasonable one, but that's what life is. Life is about living through things and then having that affect how you view things moving forward. So I think anyone trying to shout people down or get angry at people who lived through that are being foolish and irresponsible. Like, of course, when you've seen a player try to play through a knee injury who runs around as a dual threat, and you live through the greatest rug being pulled out from underneath of you all time, it's going to affect the way you view something like this. But I do want to say as well, it seems to me like what's coming out, I have to imagine it's from the agent side. I don't think the team, which has decided not to put this out all along, would start leaking things today. Now, to be clear, when they leak things, it's going to be the national media. I don't know why, but they just don't. This group in general, I would say, is not a big fan of leaking things locally, from what I can gather, but that's a whole nother point. I think, though, this is the agent, and I think that the team is waiting for Dan Quinn to speak at 3:30, and they're big on messaging. They're big on everyone being on the same page. They're going to have a meeting. Here, how are we going to say this? How are we going to couch this? How are we going to do this? Everyone will beat by that drum. They've been incredible in that way. So why wait until an hour before he speaks to then send this to Shefty and Rap Sheet? I think this is probably more the agent side kind of getting their part of it out, especially when you see some of the things about, hey, not serious, not long-term, all that stuff. I'm not convinced, based on everything I've heard, that he's just going to be back at practice like first thing next week either. I think there's a chance that this could be a couple of week thing. Not to say that I would expect him to miss the Atlanta game, because remember, it was a Thursday game, not a Sunday game. So you might actually, even if it's a 2-week-ish recovery, which is kind of what I'd heard, you might still be able to come back and play in that game. But all I'm saying is, I think we've got to wait and see. If you hear anything definitive, like he's definitely going to be out at 2 or 3 games, I think that person is being too aggressive in their timeline of getting that out there. And if you hear the opposite with the team right now, or the agent, where they come out and say, hey, he's not going to miss any time, that's probably too extreme the other way. Because again, you just don't know yet. You got to see, how does he respond? When does the swelling go down? The swelling was substantial from what I'd heard, right? So but that was why we put it out there on Friday. Everyone was like, oh, well, an MRI, so what? Players get MRIs. The point wasn't just that it was an MRI. It was an MRI and some concern about the results and what that would mean. So could he play against the Raiders? Yeah, because I said all last season leading up to the broken rib game against the Bears, he probably wasn't going to play in that game. Didn't really practice, and they let him play anyway. I just think this is different. This is a knee. This is a guy that runs around. This is a guy that takes shots. I would not allow him to play unless he is absolutely 100%, and I'm not sure that that's realistic.
Yeah, and there is a difference. I mean, having broken my ribs, it's excruciating and awful and the worst thing ever in terms of pain or whatever, but that's a pain management thing, right? These guys go through so much, it's incredible. You put your flak jacket on, you take your ridiculous painkiller type shot, and you just sort of hope you don't get hit the wrong way, right? It's hard to breathe, it's hard to do anything. But with a knee, one of those like pressure-bearing load spots where your entire athletic being, start, stop, jump, squat, run, stop running, throw, plant. If you don't have it, you don't have it. And it's a waste of time. You know what I mean? Like the thing we learn, you referenced Robert Griffin. To me, it's impossible not to evoke some of those memories and lessons learned, or what should have been learned, was there is a chasm, a Grand Canyon-style ravine between the word cleared and he's good to go. Cleared means he's not any danger of re-aggravating or making it worse just by living and breathing and playing football. Yeah. The good to go means you can't do what you do. And when you can't do what you do, for my money, you are more at risk. If you can't make the shimmy, if you can't make the Chris Cooley jelly leg, you can't do the push off, you can't do the directional change with the same explosiveness, you can't protect yourself the right way. You can't do the things that make you you. So I need to be cautious. Now, this is NFC Championship Sunday. Let's figure it out. If this is, the most meaningful game you got, they're all important because this is, whatever it is, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever percent of your schedule. These next couple of games might be almost 20%. You need this player to be on the football field for as long as possible, but you also need him for years, not for a rush back for a week so you can beat Atlanta. So we have to have long-term thinking here. I'm hoping they're more judicious maybe than they were last year. He probably should have sat one of those games, to be honest with you. I don't know which one when the rib injury was at its worst, but to me there was a kind of, a time where he clearly was not himself and something should have happened.
Compromised.
Yeah.
He did not play at the same level, and it wasn't particularly close. And in fact, he wasn't able to be Jayden Daniels, nor we always talked about when he would leave the pocket and run and he would just kind of like turtle and fall over. You knew, forget the fact that he's getting heating pads put on him on the bench or he's getting wrapped up like a mummy, and everyone's like, oh, it's fine. It's normal. That's just normal stuff.
Yeah, not normal at all.
I've never seen that for a guy that's healthy, but whatever. But remember, there were a couple plays against the Eagles and I think one other game where like he left the pocket and he just literally kind of turtled and protected himself.
Yeah.
Not him, but he was compromised and he played anyway. And to their credit, to his credit, they got through it. He was able to throw the Hail Mary and beat the Bears, even though a couple of his rough performances like that road Eagles game were in that stretch. I just think overall, if not for those 4 games, let's say he misses 2 or 3 of those, then we look back at last year, and without those numbers, he played at an MVP level for essentially the entire time he was out on the field. You saw that, and you're like, oh, have they solved it? Is this the Cliff? What? No. He just wasn't 100%. But they didn't necessarily tell him you can't do it because it's a rib. And quarterbacks play through ribs all the time.
Yeah.
You pad it up. You're going to take some shots. It's a threshold thing. I think a knee is a different story. So the question I would ask you guys is, what should be the line of delineation, the threshold for him to play against the Raiders or to be back on the field? Rap Sheet is saying his status is in doubt. That meshes with kind of what I've heard. I'd heard it's likely that he's not going to get to practice much this week, and he very well could miss this game against the Raiders. So if that is the case, if he's not going to play this weekend, do you need him to be 100% before he comes back? Would you let him play at 90%, 80%? Or is this one of those, like, my philosophy is everything's case by case. It's early in the season. It's week 3 of a marathon. You're playing a team that you're hopefully better than. They're playing on Monday night and flying cross country. You're at home after having not played since Thursday, one of the biggest rest advantages you're going to get all football season in the NFL. You can win this game without him. And even if you were playing against the Chiefs, I would say, I'm not pushing it. You're too important. It's too long of a season. There's too many games on the back end. I got to get you back to 100 as soon as possible.